Waiting for Seconds is a podcast that talks about subjects of self harm, suicide, eating disorders, and other personal subjects. If you don't feel comfortable listening to this podcast alone, listen to it with someone important to you. May that be a teacher, a parent figure, or someone you feel comfortable being with. Please enjoy the rest of the episode. Welcome to our 10th episode of Waiting for Seconds, the interview podcast where we meet people and ask them who they are and why they are.
I'm Malcolm Outkelt, and I'm here with Shannon Miller, and today I'll be talking with none other than Shannon Miller. Shannon, how you doing?
I'm alright. I'm a little tired. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon when we're recording this, 3 o'clock your time, but I'm excited. This is a big step. 10 episodes.
Yeah, and it's good to come back around to the beginning, do another episode that's just the two of us talking more personally and more specifically about the podcast than, kind of our general mini topics that we cover with other people.
I mean, after 10 episodes, after like listening back to the first episode just a little bit, my first thing I say on this podcast is, "What's up, buddy?" I'm like, ugh, yuck,
Yeah,
gross.
that's rough.
It's kind of nice to like finally get settled in a little bit and just now we're gonna just talk about like how this podcast has kind of molded us and shaped us just a little bit over what I'm pretty sure we started this in like October last year.
Yeah, I think we did. I think that our first recording was late October.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's crazy, for real. It's kind of amazing what it's done already. I mean, like, obviously we're not world famous, but I've had a lot of fun with it, and I think we've talked to some really interesting people.
Yeah, I mean, like talking with Aaron and like my own brother, I just kind of learned different things, new things, and maybe even just re-enhanced some things that I was maybe unsure about or, but before we take off into whatever happens in this episode, I want to thank everybody who's listened. We've kind of grown a little bit. I think we're like at around somewhere in the 300s of views, and I'm pretty proud of that. And I'm very grateful that people have actually taken the time out of their day to listen to our podcast. But
it's really cool, and thank you one and all for taking even a couple of minutes to listen. It's really cool of you.
Yeah, I think it's like we said in the first episode, it's important to let our minds be opened a little bit to the idea of like other ideas, and maybe our single-minded way is not the only way. So it was refreshing over time to understand, more people. But
yeah, it was really cool to talk to some of the people who, like, I mean, I like to think of myself as a relatively open person to open to new ideas, but like Mr. Underhill, Joe Underhill, I found him. I think that if we met on the street, we'd be perfectly fine friends, but I think we differ very heavily politically and ideologically. Yes, that one. Thank you.
Ideal.
No,
Anyways,
you got it right.
yeah.
Ideologically. You can cut this out, please.
I don't think I will.
Fuck. But I think that being able to actually sit down and talk with him, I came to understand where some of those ideas were formed from and realized that, like, they're not baseless, bad without thought behind them. And he really is a good person, even if, he believes things that I think are nonsense.
Right.
It doesn't really matter because he's a good person and he cares for the people who he surrounds himself with. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of nice to hear like more of his ideology. I think that's
Mhm.
the word you were looking for.
Yeah.
Because like I've known him throughout my entire high school like life,
Mhm.
and he's just been a big impact. And to hear maybe a broader like description, because how he was describing things just like brought me back into a place of almost calm. Like I felt really calm when I was talking to him because it was just the same person who was very strong and like who he wanted to be, and he's a good parent, a good uh like Christian role model,
Mhm.
and it was just I miss him.
Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about him at a later point in the
Yeah,
podcast, if that works for you.
yeah,
Uh,
that works.
I was thinking we'd start by touching back on some of the questions we asked in episode 1 and how we might have changed or how our opinions might have changed since then. Does
Yeah,
that sound good?
yeah, that works, buddy.
Um,
I'm gonna hit
Go ahead.
you with the first one.
Yeah,
Uh,
love it.
okay, you talked about like sitting out in the cold when, or like in your backyard when to manage stress.
Mhm.
Has that changed? Have you developed new ways of managing your stress, or
So, I mean, I still theoretically like doing that.
yeah?
But I haven't really done that since we last talked, mostly because it's been winter and recently becoming spring. So sitting outside is really, really cold. And our little chair that I have out there that I really like, uh, it is falling apart a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. So in like the last time I really had a, I don't know, existential crisis might not be the best word for it, but a real self check in and take time to think about my actions and realize that I might not have been acting in a way that I like to. That is what I did. I went and sat out there and took time to myself
mm.
and looked up at the stars. And it was really nice. It was really centering.
Has it changed since the start of the podcast? Like
Um,
any other new ways, or
I think that the only other real uh, new way is that I've been doing a lot of dishes around the house. Both of my parents, I think since the podcast have started,
yeah?
have gotten on 40-hour schedules, so they're constantly working. And so I've been trying to do a lot of dishes, and I've gotten to a point where I can get into a almost meditative state when I do that,
Mm-hmm.
where I just focus on dishes, think about what's going on, and kind of zone out.
Mm.
Which maybe isn't ultimately it's a productive way to do that, to manage my stress, but it's maybe not the most reliable way because sometimes I do dishes and I'm doing dishes and I think about how I'm doing dishes and that sucks.
I mean, I don't love dishes, but sometimes you just get into a zone and
Hmm.
your mind can take off and you're still doing dishes.
Yeah. So that's the only real new way that I've found to manage my stress. How about you?
Gotcha.
Are you still doing the same things you were talking about last time, or anything
I
new, interesting?
I for the life of me cannot remember what I said last time. That was October, November, but I'm pretty sure it has changed. I mean, I do Muay Thai and
Uh-huh.
I punch things well. Um, it's more I think more running has helped me, like after a hard days of work, because I mean the new job is not hard per se, but it does have its stressful moments. Because I mean, like when we're I'm a hoistman. I don't know if I've mentioned that on the podcast. I'm a hoistman just like my brother. And when we're doing like shaft inspection, which means going from the top of this elevator shaft to the bottom, it can be a little tedious and a little frustrating if somebody gives you the wrong bell or something. So on those days, it's super easy for me to just get home and just be in a funk. And so I just put on my shoes, maybe grab my headphones and start playing some music and go for a little run. And usually by the time I get back, I'm no longer thinking about those things. I'm thinking about, man, that run sucked. So it's usually just easier to exercise or do something that is maybe stressful towards my body. And I'm like, there's a very loud motorcycle outside my window.
I could hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was picked up. It's just easier to like just start sweating, and then all the bad things come off of my mind. I run significantly more than I did prior, and even in the wintertime, you put on like an ice cleat of some sort and you just kind of go, and the cold air makes it a lot nicer.
Well, that's a very nice, healthy way to, like, maybe not mentally the best if you're kind of suffering through it, but physically very, very productive.
Yeah, and it just takes my mind off of the stress of that day or the previous day. It just makes it easier.
It's a very good way to deal with stress.
Yeah. And I don't think I'm like significantly more stressed now just because of all the new running and maybe some different mechanisms. I think my stress since the start of this podcast has actually significantly gone down. With, I think I was worried about money and my car. That's also something that changed. Is I got my new car, and the truck was sold and taken care of, and just all my stress has been slowly reduced, and it's good. It's healthy, and I'm glad that that's kind of a change from the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad that you've got a new car. That's a very nice stress remover.
Yeah, it's a lot better because I would like to have a vehicle that I can get to work with and trust. But has most of your stress come down since the start?
I think that to some extent it has come down, to some extent it has gone up, which is a very unhelpful way of putting it. I understand, but what that is to say is that I have found ways to deal with it really well.
Yeah.
But I don't really, like, I feel like I've gotten more stressed in life. I mean, I'm trying to look for a job, and like that is really not a thing that I enjoy.
No, I don't think anybody enjoys it.
But I've found good ways to deal with it, and in my personal life found ways that I calm myself down, and also simply removed some stressors from my life too.
That's good. I didn't know you were looking for a job, buddy.
Yeah. It's a bad time, truly.
Yeah. But it's not snowing down there anymore, yeah?
No, it's not. Well, I mean, it's Denver. It's gonna snow in the next couple of weeks. It snowed a week ago or two. Week ago? That sounds about right.
I hate the snow.
But at this point, it's hot enough that the snow melts by the next day.
Okay. Gotcha. The other question that came up several times throughout the podcast, and we talked about it at the beginning, is optimism or pessimism? What is your hot take now?
In truth, my hot take is probably about the same as it was in the beginning. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I stand somewhere in between, generally. Which, in hindsight, thinking about most of the people we've talked to, isn't really that hot of a take. A lot of people
No.
seem to have that view of, like, it neither is really that right. So I'm somewhere in between. I see optimism on this side and pessimism on this side. I think personally, I generally consider myself an optimist. But like globally and on a larger scale, I would consider myself a pessimist. But I think it's unfair to say that I am universally one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like according to the guests that we had on, that nobody ever was really like one or the other. They always stayed somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I know most people said they were like a realist. But I also feel like that falls under pessimism. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool, because I definitely came into the assumption that that question, are you an optimist or pessimist, would have a lot of people who are very staunchly like, I am an optimist and this is why. I am a pessimist and this is why. But really, it was never like that. It was a lot of people saying, I'm somewhere in between, or I believe something entirely different. I don't think those words even apply to me.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, to get somebody else's like kind of gray opinion and it's not black and white, it's nice, and it feels like people kind of share that same thinking.
What about you? I assume you have a similar gray.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when I first started, I was more, I want to say, pessimistic, but it wasn't like, I just didn't know the gray area. I kind of forced myself to not be on the fence. I just had to be one or the other. But now it's more, I'm okay with like the idea of being a little on the grayer side. Like there's certain situations that I can be more optimistic about, or I have to almost force myself to be optimistic about. But there are moments where like winter in general, I had to face the facts of like, it's gonna snow. There's nothing I can do about it. It's gonna happen, so I'm just gonna have to deal with it. I'm gonna have to work around it. And that's where like the realism comes by. But I guess it depended on the situation. Like my car, I was it took me a lot of time to try and figure out how much money I was willing to spend, and then in the end it was all okay. But during it I kind of had to think like, where am I going to go? Like, is this going to be an okay choice in general? I just kind of had to keep thinking about everything, be a little bit more real, and consider disappointment. It like I said, it goes depending on the situation.
Yeah, and I think that I feel a lot more comfortable with answers like that than I think I used to at the beginning of our podcast.
I did too.
I've heard so many of those answers. That's, everybody feels like that. It's just
nobody's the same.
Nobody's the same, and I think very few people really fall into purely optimist or purely pessimist.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. I really like that about humanity.
Yeah, and kind of going like stretching a little bit from that.
Mhm.
Religion. Religion kind of
Uh-huh.
fell under that gray category that everybody is not really black or white. And especially like last episode, Austin with what did he have? He's an atheist.
Uh-huh.
His
His
dad's a Buddhist. His mom's
dad's
a
Buddhist.
Catholic.
Yeah. Sister is
I want to
witchy,
say
I want to say he
witchy.
said.
Yeah,
I
witchy's a
don't
good
remember
term.
exactly what the term he used for it was.
But like most of the guests are in this kind of, they're not, I wouldn't say a gray area, but a lot of them are super open to the fact of other religions,
Mhm.
like
A
being
lot
okay
of
with. Go ahead.
a lot of people have very personalized religion for them. Joe Underhill, who I brought up earlier, uh, talked a lot about how his religion, like, he follows the church like a lot of people, but doesn't just see it purely like has a more personal relationship with God than just the church. He is personally committed to God and has had personal spiritual events happening with him, which is really cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I mean,
Go
going
ahead.
like with Adam,
Uh huh.
he's got this a very uh what's the word? It's like math based.
Yes.
Uh he kind of has to he looks at the world of Christianity in a more scientific way. He is very much like me in that he's not a super big fan of the church and like the place.
Uh huh.
I'm missing my terms today, but he also has that very significant relationship with God, but he also has to look he likes to look at Christianity through science
Uh huh.
and like he considers evolution to be a very big possibility to the creation of man and like kind of almost balances that with the Bible, if
Takes
that
these
makes
two
sense.
ideas that a lot of people see as opposites and merges them into a personal belief system, which is very real and
Right.
very very reasonable.
Right. He doesn't just like look at the Bible as fact is fact.
Hmm.
He has to kind of give it some time, give it some thought, read some other books, and maybe come back to it.
Uh huh.
Which I appreciate, and I think from the beginning of like the podcast, I have definitely tried to be a little bit more open minded with maybe other religions have that same like thought. Like, whoa. Let's take a look at something and let's come back to this.
Hmm.
Um like for example, Muay Thai, a lot of people are traditional. I am not super traditional with it where they have a lot of respect for like the mats before they go on them and train. I
Hmm.
still respect the mats, but it's in my own way. It's more of a respect to the teacher and to the people who have like brought us together.
Uh huh.
But it I don't take it from the Thailand. What do they know? What, sorry, what do they know? What is their religion?
So yes, Thailand is 95% Buddhist, 85 to 95% Buddhist, and 5 to 10% Muslim. So yeah, Buddhist.
Okay. I I've definitely opened my mind a lot more to the idea of being okay with other traditions in different religions.
Mhm.
I'm used to be very one with the church and like to go every like Saturday whenever church was available. But now I haven't gone to church in almost 3 years and it's changed me, and hearing from each individual person, they take pieces and of different religions and kind of live their life with that. Now, they still might fall under one or the other, like Adam and Underhill are more Christian. They still believe in God, but they don't have just one like straight narrow path that they have to take.
They still believe in God in that, like, the Christian, or a lot of people believe in the Christian and Catholic God for that, but they don't just believe in that. They often take little bits and pieces from other stuff and from their personal experience and incorporate that into their understanding of God.
Right. And how to live their lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a really, like, impressive, innovative thing that we as humans can do. That we find these systems and customize them to be so personal and so close to us.
Mm.
And that's really beautiful in my mind.
I feel like you've definitely changed with your view on religion since the beginning, because I've known you for quite a long time now, 2, 3, 4 years.
4 sounds about right.
4 sounds about right. And you used to be more just science, but now it seems like you've opened your like you're a little bit more relaxed, I feel like, on just the idea and the concept of religion, not maybe one specific religion. I'm pretty sure you're still an atheist. That hasn't changed, but like maybe how you live. Yeah, I'm going to let you explain.
So I generally consider myself agnostic, which is to say that I don't have good proof of a god or a creationism myth, but believe that there is no true way to disprove it either. That we can't prove God exists, but simultaneously I cannot prove God does not exist. Right. And as such, I will not use either of those as a way to live my life. The existence of God is unimportant to me, because one way or another, I'll live my life just the same. But I think that I definitely have come into more of like the idea of religion is a amazing thing that people have done, and it is definitely not, in many cases, a negative for society. I mean, obviously there's going to be terrible people who do terrible things, and organized religion may very well encourage some of those things or protect, priests who do terrible things. But it is not necessarily a negative, and a lot of people find ways to personalize it to make it purely a positive. You probably don't. I don't think I've shared this with many people, but 7 or 8 years ago, I'd say, maybe a little bit later than that. I think it was probably 13 or 14. So 6 or 7 years ago, I went through a period of being very. This was when a lot of the feminism and anti-feminism was on the rise, and there were a lot of like YouTube influencers who really loved to talk about it and talk about like drama content of it. Like, did you ever watch Leafy is Here?
I did not, but I know a good portion of it. Yeah,
I fucking loved that guy.
Really?
Yeah.
I never thought you would.
All of like 4 months, it was like that I would take every bit of that content that I could. And that included becoming, like, for a period, very anti-theist, I would call it. Very like, religion is innately bad and only harms society. Religious people are bad. And luckily, thankfully, my parents and my aunt and uncle pointed out that that was a deeply flawed worldview. And, like, effectively kicked me out of it and told me, like, this is a weird and caring, unhelpful, disrespectful way to live life and to view people. And I mean, I thank everyone, I thank God. I say that, but obviously I don't really believe in that.
Right.
That was not something that I allowed to influence me for more time than it did.
Mm. That is definitely something new I learned about you.
Yeah, that's something I don't tell a lot of people because I'm not very proud of.
Yeah.
Because it's really like one of the low points that I view my life is becoming against a lot of being a hater of humanity and of people in and of themselves.
Yeah, I think I can definitely agree in the case of like trying to avoid hating people. Like
Mhm.
everybody does bad things. Some would be put on a scale and it's a lot more shitty, but people are still people.
Mhm.
And there's what they do and what they think and what they believe in is kind of important to understand.
And there are some things that are unforgivable, but those things should not be things innate to people or
Yes,
simple beliefs that someone has.
right.
The only things
Because
that are really unforgivable are their actions. Go ahead.
right. Because like we see in the media all the time that like Islam is bad or
Mhm.
Judaism is bad for one reason or another, and like it's not the religion that's bad, it's the people that
Uh-huh.
have changed it for the worst.
Yeah.
They give this bad stereotype one way or another.
The religion in and of itself is not innately bad because a belief system may be flawed, but cannot really. I mean, I guess I shouldn't make blanket assumptions about full any group because obviously there are belief systems that can be fundamentally bad,
Yeah,
but there's very few of those that are actually consistently followed by any substantial group of people.
yeah. Wow, that
Yeah,
man,
that was a lot.
that was a lot.
um Well, I'd love to actually ask you the final, like one of our big through lines on the podcast that we talked about in the first episode. I think we talked about it in almost every other episode too.
That's a
Nature
pretty
versus
common.
nurture.
It's definitely a common theme.
It's a very common theme. Uh, Nature versus nurture. We've heard some very good opinions on it, including our. I don't.
I'm pretty sure Austin had the most impacting opinion for me.
Yeah, I
Not
think
my
that's probably
the
true of me as well.
walking, talking, and Star Wars Encyclopedia Austin. The last episode, he had a good take, and most of the time I've heard people say nurture because it's the
Mhm.
people you surround yourself with. But he had a good take of the same thing as like that gray area. You can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
You can't. And I even though that was a couple weeks ago, I still kind of think on it. Like, yeah, your genetics kind of make you who you are. They
Mhm.
changed your like physical, but it's that balance of like what choices you make in your nature versus who you've surrounded yourself with, how they react to those choices. It it's that balance that I just appreciated so much.
I
Um,
think I think we took about the exact same thing out of that then. Because I at the beginning of this almost without a doubt said nurture
yeah,
full heartedly.
full heartedly.
But I think that I have changed that to it is absurd to think of one without the other. They cannot exist without each other. So what matters more? Yeah, they both do. They
I
both matter more.
I think we'll probably learn more about it through our other guests and
Mhm.
maybe see, because we haven't had a whole lot of nature people.
No, we haven't. I want to see if maybe we can target more nature people in the future.
Yeah, but like, it was such a good take, and I'm still kind of thinking about it.
Well, with that, I think we both have basically the same opinion about that. I'd love to ask some of the questions that have been asked. After every episode, we ask our guests if they have any questions they'd like to see in future episodes. And I think this is a good point to go through what people have added and talk with one another about it. So just to start from the top, one of our first guest added questions is, what's your favorite video game? And why? And do you have any possible stories or life experiences that have formed from it?
Ooh.
I'd be happy to take this one first.
Yeah, take away. I got to think about this for a second.
So I probably have two favorite video games. A like nostalgic favorite and a like real love and quality favorite. So my nostalgic favorite, no questions asked, Age of Empires 2.
Oh, that's a good one.
I played it unceasingly as a kid because it was on my parents' computer and they showed me how to play it, so I played it. And I have so many fond memories of it
Good
that
game.
just are. It's such a fun, simple game that, like, even now, despite not having played it since last year, I have it installed because it's a good game and I might want to play it one day. And then a like modern day, the game that I've played that I really feel like has hit me the hardest, probably Yuppie Psycho.
Eh?
Yuppie Psycho is a psychological horror game about a young man trying to progress his way through a strange demonic company. And it's a really like visually beautiful, but also terrifying and really cool game. That I spent, I mean, probably only 20 hours or so with, but sticks in my mind to this day. And I thoroughly recommend it. I mean, it's probably $15 on Steam. It's a very good game. Well, now your time has come.
I'm looking it up. Hold on, give me a second.
You have it in your library.
What?
I bought it for you?
You did! You did! That's right! This game. Age of Empires is such a good choice. I know I could have the same game, but
you could have the same game. Age of Empires is a great game.
You already know what my favorite game is.
What's your favorite game?
I'm gonna let you guess. It's not that hard.
I mean, Last of Us 2 you just played recently?
No.
No?
No. It's also not Last of Us 2.
Wait, didn't you play? Oh, is it Last of Us Part 2? Is that what
Last
it's
of
called?
Us? It's the first one. It's the first one. But that's not the game that I'm talking about. That's a great game though. But no.
So I'll have to make you tell me about that at a later date. You know what? The easy guess, is it Skyrim?
No.
No.
All
right.
It's Minecraft.
Oh yeah,
I've played a lot of hours of Minecraft.
God, I didn't even think about Minecraft.
I know. Well, it's not even on your. It's not even on your radar.
No, I haven't played Minecraft in so long. Like, I should play more.
It's still a pretty great game.
It's a pretty great game.
It depends on what you want out of it. A lot of people just use it to spend more time with their friends, which it's not super easy to do sometimes. But I've played Minecraft since like the beginning, since like the Nether came out, the Halloween
The
update.
release of horses.
Oh, the release of horses and like the Redstone update. I remember
Oh yeah.
it took us a very long time to actually buy the game. Like my parents weren't poor, but they weren't willing to buy a silly video game unless it
Uh-huh.
was, especially like computer video games, because that wasn't really a thing
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fond memories. I met this guy on the server with my buddy Dusty, who I've played a lot of Minecraft with. He had I'm pretty sure he worked in Google, but he was like 30. I had to have been like 11. He was an older man, and we only knew him via somebody who was at Sunset Lake. I'm pretty sure I've talked about it on the podcast. Anyways, like there's so many things that I can think of right now about like Minecraft and all of the shared connections I know through Minecraft. Like our friend Val, I met through Minecraft.
Yeah.
We played like Super Smash Brothers, but the Minecraft one.
God, on that server that had absolutely no players on it.
Oh no. But
Oh,
it was a banger of the time, and
it was.
how my friendship with my buddy Dusty grew was through Minecraft because he had moved to Japan, which was like 14 hours ahead.
Wow.
Like for timestamp, time zone.
Time zone.
Time zone. And then like when he was also in Hawaii.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how like him and I became best friends. And it's just Minecraft has brought so many people in my life like together to hang out with me and like me to hang out with them. And it's just mwah, chef's kiss. A game for like it being a game though. I mean, I've played a lot of Terraria. I guess my favorite game, just for it being a game, was Gris. The game you introduced me
Oh,
to.
Gris is a beautiful game.
It was not. It didn't have much of a story. Like it had its own story, and you kind of had to take like each bit and piece and just kind of let it consume you.
Yeah.
And it was just like artistically pleasing. The music was good, and like just the simple like things you had to do. Like there was levels, but I think I may have died like once or twice. And the game's
Yeah.
only like a couple hours long. Like you could beat it, no problem.
But it's just a beautiful experience.
Yes.
It's that really like, is video games art? Yeah, because games like this exist.
The other game that I think is actually up there with Gris is that paperclip game that I recently played.
Incremental paperclips.
Oh, I'm gonna put that link down in the description.
Universal paperclips.
Universal paperclips. It's an idle game, but it's a very good idle game. It's not like something you'd see on Apple Store or Google Play where you have to pay to win. There's no pay to win. There's only paperclips, and I'll leave it there on that question.
I think that's a great place to end that.
Minecraft, Universal paperclips, and Gris. Minecraft at the top, then Gris, then paperclips. We will move on to the next question. It was, how has the place you have grown up affected you? Have you ever moved? And what was the reason? And has that ever changed you? We asked, I believe, Cam this.
I believe this was the question Cam inserted. Yeah.
Yeah.
because she had had a lot of experience with moving and living in different places, and I have a very boring answer to the question. I have grown up in Denver, Colorado, my entire life in the exact same house.
That's
I've swapped rooms a couple of
crazy.
times.
I remember
That's
you
the
were
furthest I've gone.
you were outside. You were
Uh,
in the cool
yes, I
shed.
moved out to the shed for a couple of weeks so that we could get asbestos removed.
That's right. I remember that. That sounded fun.
Yeah, it was a fun shed. It was an enjoyable time. It was nice to, have effectively a whole area to my own, even if that area was,
200
25
feet.
square feet.
Oh, yeah. But it's like 200 feet from your house.
Oh yeah, like 200 feet from my house. Probably not. It's probably closer to 50, 60,
Yeah,
but it was a walk.
it was a
Um,
walk.
but yeah, Colorado has affected me pretty heavily, but it's kind of hard to substantiate how it has affected me because I don't
It's all
have
you've
any point of
known,
reference. Yeah,
right?
it's all
You
I've ever
haven't
known.
you haven't moved or anything.
I mean, there's some easy, like, the air. My lungs are probably stronger than people who aren't from Colorado by just a little smidgen, because our atmosphere is slightly less dense.
Weak lungs.
Yeah, you're a weak.
Weak lung. I am not a weak lung user.
No, my lungs are better because we have less air. Come on,
Come
figure it
on.
out. Um,
Come on.
but there's definitely some like Colorado is a pretty liberal blue state these days, so my policies have definitely been affected by living in a place that already has a lot of liberal policies in place, and uh, the I've also seen the failure of some of those policies. We have had a
Ooh, yeah.
homelessness problem for a very long time, uh, and by the fault of a lot of politicians who are liberal and have been elected by the people. Like, I see the failures of those things and understand that they could have been avoided if we had elected
Mm,
better people
mm.
effectively. Or maybe to some extent that they are almost unavoidable because of the politicians' innate flaws and their, the fact that they are all sold out to a corporation.
But I mean, you've seen a lot of change throughout your life in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, in my lifetime, weed was legalized here, and gay
That's
marriage was
crazy.
legalized here, and we were one of the first states for both, and I'm very proud of that fact.
I don't know if, well, mm, the
Uh,
second one for sure, but weed, I don't know. I've seen a lot of change and good and bad in weed, but
uh-huh. Yeah, Colorado has we have a good weed policy. It's gotten less good recently in the past few years because our taxes are making legal weed basically unpriceable. Uh, the legal weed has become more expensive than just buying weed from a black market. So people have stopped buying legal weed because the taxes are too high.
I wish weed was legal in Idaho. Uh,
But I mean, like, yeah, that, for example, I have had very positive relationship with weed my whole life.
hmm. I mean, that makes sense. Because I mean, if you've lived there your entire life, it definitely
It's
changes
normal.
over. Yeah.
And what about you? You were astounded that I've never moved.
When was that? When
What?
was I astounded that you've never moved?
You were astounded.
Name one time.
This question. What about you? Have you moved a lot?
Yeah, I would say I've moved a significant amount. Let's see. I'm gonna start at the beginning. When I was born, I was born in Oklahoma, some suburb out there, and then I think we moved up to Kingston, Washington when I was like 2. No. When did Incredibles come out? Incredibles is a very important. It's 2004. Okay. So 2 is a good age of when I moved up to Kingston. We lived in naval housing because my dad was in the Navy. I probably mentioned that before. And then they turned the military housing into a community center / park, which should kind of bummed me out because I kind of liked the park that we lived next to. It was maybe 20 feet from the house. It was very nice.
Yeah.
I have a lot of my earliest movie watching experiences in that house. And like Incredibles, that was the first movie I ever watched. And that was with my aunt and uncle. Thank you. I don't know if they listen to this podcast, but thank you. And then we moved to a house in Jefferson Beach, which I lived there till about 14, 15.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of, stuff changed with that. I went to 2 different schools, living in that house. The first elementary school, and then the Adventist elementary school, and then I went back to the original public school. A lot of things morphed me in that house, babysitting. I took care of my neighbor's chickens. I took care of our own chickens. I started Minecraft in that house. I didn't start Minecraft. I started playing Minecraft. I broke my wrist. Yeah. A lot of things changed in that house. And then when I was around 15, I got the bright idea of doing very similar thing to what my brother Austin did and go to a school outside of the house. So I went to Auburn Adventist Academy, and where Adam and I went to school. And that is where I kind of got my own ideology of religion and how I wanted to perceive God. And it's where I met Joe Underhill. Then when I graduated, sorry, let me tailor it back a little bit. I'm fucking this up. So at Auburn Adventist Academy, it's a dorm situation. Mm-hmm. So I was away from home a lot of the time. I maybe saw my parents every 2-ish months, but it was kind of hard because you'd go and see them for a weekend, but on the other hand, I had choir performances, which usually were on the weekend, so I'd be going out and doing choir things, or I would go and be with friends, and so it wasn't like I was upset about not going and seeing my family, but I was just away from home for a lot of time. And then during the summers, my first summer, I worked on a farm, and so I would only see my family every weekend because I'd stay on the farm. And then the next 2 summers, it was Sunset Lake, working there. I've moved around a lot considering the small amount of time frame.
And how do you think moving around that much, did that change you? Did that affect you as a person significantly, or?
It definitely did, for sure, because I met a lot of people and I had to share rooms with a lot of people. I eventually got my first bedroom to myself when my brother Austin moved out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was then having roommates in the dorm. And then when I finally graduated high school, when I moved to Walla Walla, it just kind of all, it definitely made it a lot harder because now where I am now, I don't feel like I have a home. Like not like
Huh.
a place where it is I can call it mine, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah, as it's made it hard in that with all the moving and like I've now lived here the longest since I lived in Idaho the longest since like living at home.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always moving, and then like every 6, 7, 8 months I would have to go somewhere else. Sunset Lake, Walla Walla, yada yada yada. It's just I haven't settled down. And so like eventually when I get my own house, I'm hoping it's gonna feel like home. It's gonna feel like my space, and like yeah. And a
Ultimately,
roundabout
go ahead.
in a roundabout way, uh it's hard. It's been hard to just keep moving around and finding different spots to
Mm-hmm.
sit down with like all my things. So,
Well,
it's
you've done a
definitely
lot of
changed me.
moving, but have you done much travel? The next question added by one of our guests is, what are your views on travel and exploring the world? Do you want to travel?
Oh,
Do you see it as valuable and informative?
yes. As much
Yes.
as I hate moving and like finding places to live. I
Mhm.
haven't I've always had a place to live, but like traveling, I love it. I love it every time. I am the kind of person who kind of prefers hotel beds versus my own bed.
Mhm.
I think that's because of how many times I've moved and because of how many beds I've had and mattresses. Like going to a different spot and like staying a night or two uh there. Like when I went to Hawaii, great, good mattress, 10 out of 10.
10 out of
Uh
10.
it was, and then like going to California and New York and hopefully Denver,
Hopefully.
hopefully. Um it's just I will always want to go and see the world, and I personally think just like this podcast, it's important to travel because I learn new things. I learn new
Yeah.
people, I learn new foods, I learn new ways of life and living. Like a lot of my family don't like city living, but I think it's important and cool to go to a city and understand what it's like to live there maybe for maybe a week and maybe tour it a little bit. Um
Yeah,
it's very
I'm
important to me.
I agree. I'm absolutely agreed. I think that probably one of my most formative moments, maybe not individual moments, but general periods of time was my trip to Hawaii.
I
I
never knew you went to
fucking loved
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yeah,
What?
my parents renewed their vows for their 10th anniversary in Hawaii.
I I know that. I've heard that's weird. My brain disconnected that you went to Hawaii, but I did know that your parents renewed their vows.
Heh.
Period.
Um, yeah,
Interesting.
we took a trip out to Hawaii for a couple of weeks, and it was fucking beautiful and amazing to see the new, like, the culture that was so different from mine, but
It's not Denver.
it's so not Denver. But also interestingly was formed, like, it's so opposite of a lot of American culture, but was formed by American culture and American occupation.
Mm.
Like, so much of Hawaiian culture these days has strayed from native culture because of our occupation of Hawaii. And understanding that really let me like see how other cultures that feel even more different than ours, a Japanese culture, have formed from similar experiences.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I guess I say Japanese. That's kind of a weird example, but
Right. Uh, when I definitely like when I went to Hawaii, it was that same kind of idea of there is a culture of like it's an Americanized culture over there.
uh-huh.
Um, but what are your views of do you want to go traveling more?
Oh yes, I love traveling. I'm not very good at it,
Me neither.
but I fucking love it, man. That's one of my favorite experiences. My grandmother works a very travel focused job. She goes around a lot and often is able to bring me with, which I really appreciate. Some of my more formative years are like remembering those experiences traveling around with my grandparents, because she's got
That's
to go to a
nice.
meeting somewhere and thought we might as well take other people along. And I really I love travel, but I'm very bad at it.
We'll take a trip. You and
We'll
I.
take a trip.
We'll take
Yeah,
a trip
I'm
one of
down.
these days. We'll go to like Florida.
Uh,
Maybe
and
not Florida.
Our final question on here, added by a guest, is: do you have any hobbies that have really shaped who you've become?
Bro, you already know. It's
I already
it's
know.
it's Muay Thai.
Uh huh.
I've I've gotten like I started at 260 pounds in September
Hmm.
2021. It's 265. And now I'm almost 100 pounds less than that.
God damn.
And just the discipline and like it's been one of the hardest things and one of the
Mhm.
hardest hobbies I've ever done, but it's definitely for the better. And the discipline alone has helped me, like start this podcast, start being okay with like doing the things I want to do and pushing forth, even though they might be expensive or
Mhm.
a pain in the ass. So definitely, it's Muay Thai.
Yeah.
But how about you? Hobbies?
So I mean, there's some of the easy ones. I love playing video games. That has
Obviously,
not changed.
right?
Um, there's some of the more weirder ones. I used to fence a lot.
I
Uh,
have always
in
imagined you fencing, so this is perfect.
in late middle school. Um, but I really loved fencing, and it was a really good formative experience. It helped me get fitter. It helped me have more discipline. It was just a fun thing to do too. Um, and then I broke my foot, which makes fencing really hard. So I stopped for a couple of weeks. Well, my foot recovered, and by the end of those couple of weeks, my foot was in a lot of pain. Even like once it was done recovering, and so I gave myself a few more weeks, and then a few more weeks, and then I just kind of forgot about going back to fencing altogether. And it really is a shame because I really think I'd be a lot fitter if I kept fencing. I think I probably could have been a pretty good fencer too.
I think you should
Um,
go back to fencing. That's very cool.
yeah, I might. I could still go back and talk to. I mean, I don't even know if Elaine is still alive. Um,
Is it-
the coach that I had for my fencing is a local coach. She is an amazing fencer. She back mid '90s, I want to say, was really close to winning an Olympic fencing event. She was a really fucking good fencer, and a really good tutor too. But this was I mean, I was in the middle of school and I had a lot of things going on, and it just was one of the last things on my to-do list.
Hmm.
Um, which I
Of
think
course.
is, go ahead.
of course, we both uh, have another hobby. I'll let you finish, though.
It's just ultimately kind of sad that I left it because I think it would have been a very nice thing to continue doing. What's our other hobby?
As D&D, baby.
Oh, D&D, baby. You love some D&D.
That's definitely helped me grow and be okay with, like, coming out of my shell and, like, doing weird, crazy things.
Uh-huh. With being a nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, I love D&D. The
God, I
D&D
love
has
D&D.
really has shaped who I've become so very much.
I've met so many new people through D&D.
Right? Well, I think as we wrap up the podcast, we should go through and talk about each episode in particular. We've done 9 so far, and I think it would be really interesting to go back and talk about every one other than our very first one that was just us. Anything big that we remember from it? Any big takeaways? Anything you want to talk about?
Um, it's truly like what I've been wanting to do for so long is this podcast. So having the chance to listen to these individuals, Aaron and Jasper and Blake, like for me, it was mostly like meeting the new people that maybe have taught you. Some of them, like I know, but not a whole lot of, like Aaron and Cam and other Austin.
Other Austin, not your brother.
Not my brother Austin. And because like I didn't know much about Aaron's illnesses in episode 2, and him talking about like the amount of pills that he has to take just to be functional. And it's not like those pills are like affecting him negatively. Some of them suck, that's for sure. I cannot for the life of me remember any of their names, but like to think the perspective of somebody who's got Lyme disease and has other diseases, how they have to live their life and like change so much compared to like me. Like if I had to do all the things that Aaron has to do, I don't know if I could handle it.
Yeah. It really, like, I've never really heard that much. Like, I obviously know him and we're pretty good friends, and so I've heard a lot about how much he can be annoyed by these pills and whatnot, but I've never really heard that specificity. And it's fucking insane how much work he does and how fucking strong he is. 'Cause I could never deal with all of that. Like,
that's a lot.
It's a lot. And like, maybe if I was in his situation and I've been dealing with it for years, maybe I would come to have a similar understanding that he does. But even then, it feels like he knows it deeper than like some doctors.
Yeah.
It's really good to know that, like to understand that so deeply about my friend. It really has given me a new understanding of him and his whole existence.
Yeah. And I kind of respect more like some of the time he has to take off for D&D, or he's like really tired one day. Like yeah, I might be really tired, but usually when Aaron's talking about being tired, he needs to go to bed. He shouldn't be standing up in the moment. He should be lying down.
It was also really cool to hear about his sister.
I was going to say that. Sister,
but like she is fucking impressive.
Yeah. She's got her bachelor's at 18 and she's working on her master's now.
Right?
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Most people don't even get their master's till they're 28.
That's like smartness beyond belief.
I do love his admiration for the rest of his family, because I know for me personally, there's things that my brothers can do that I'm like a little bit jealous of, or like, it's like, dang, I wish I could do that. Uh, the way he talked about his sister was just like, he really truly loves his family,
Uh-huh.
and yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it into words. It's just I love the way he loves his family, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to kind of echo exactly what you said earlier. It has also been really cool to meet with people who have shaped you in that way. Uh, Adam Taylor, for example, our second guest. Um, and he's an old friend of yours, right?
Yeah, I met him in middle school, I think
Yeah.
like fifth grade, and then I've known him since 5th grade.
Yeah. It's really cool to see how you guys are similar in so many ways and simultaneously like have clearly pushed each other simultaneously very similar people and very different people because you've formed around each other to match one another but to also fill in each other's gaps. Like obviously not perfectly. No relationship could ever be perfect like that.
No, and I
But
mean
it's really cool to see your guys' relationship.
yeah, and I liked knowing a little bit more about what goes on in his mind, because
Uh-huh.
I knew he had anger issues. I knew from like the very beginning, because we used to hang out a lot,
Mhm.
and of course everybody gets angry from time to time. So to hear how he managed to deal with all of that, and is still still learning,
Mhm.
um it's just really good to like understand my buddy a little bit more, and especially since the podcast I've been able to hang out with him more. I've started a D&D group with him and a couple of our other friends, and so it was just good to mostly hear from him again, and maybe hear what has changed
Mhm.
like since then, and how maybe especially like his take on religion. Like his take on
Uh-huh.
religion has changed since high school, which wasn't that long ago.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And he had a really enlightened take on religion.
Also, his song was really good.
His song was really good.
He did that for his now fiance.
Yeah.
I don't know when they're getting married, but oh, he's a good guy. I love him.
Um, and then going on to the next episode, I feel very similar about Cam that I do with Aaron. Uh, Already a friend, I already feel like I know a lot about her, but it just deepens my connection, deepens my understanding with her to know even more, to hear her story from her own mouth.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about Cam, because like I've played a little bit of D&D, or I've played a little bit
Mhm.
of League. And at first I was a little intimidated by her, but hearing more and getting to know her
Mhm.
a little bit more through the podcast definitely enlightened me, especially with her take on religion. Like she's, I want to say, a religion
Uh-huh.
major,
Yeah,
and
world religion, I want to say it is.
yeah, and to like, for somebody who's not like super religious, like she doesn't fall under one
Mhm.
group or another, and like she was talking about how most religions are similar
Mhm.
in how they treat people, or what their like daily activities are, or morning activities, like the simple get up, have a prayer, or every week or so go to church, go to some
Uh-huh.
sort of meeting. And it's just nice because like she's somebody who has taken the time and looked over all of that and kind of explained it to us.
Yeah, hearing it from like an expert's mouth.
Right. She definitely opened my mind to religion a little bit more. I kind of started with Aaron and learning more a little bit about Judaism.
Mhm.
But for her to talk about just religion as a whole opened my mind a lot more.
Uh-huh.
And then we also had Underhill, who came after her, talking about his perspective on Christianity, especially as a teacher in a Christian academy.
Yeah, a teacher and a mentor, and I really liked Underhill, even though like I don't believe a lot of the same things he believes, and I often view, like I said earlier in the episode, that those religious mentors are often corrupting figures, or are not really that caring, or just want you to believe in their religion. Um, but Mr. Underhill, very much not like that at all. He cared about his kids like they were his family. He'd do anything for them at the drop of a hat, which is really inspiring.
Hmm. I mean,
Uh,
I hope to be like that someday. Like,
yeah,
I don't plan on being a history teacher, but I do plan on like having friends of my kids or students or something like that I mentor and like would care about them in the same way, you
mhm,
know?
yeah,
It was just good also talking to him because I don't talk to him a whole lot. Out of all of like his pseudo kids, I definitely talk to him the least.
yeah,
Um, but it was really nice to hear from him and to talk about his new kid and
yeah.
uh his actual kid,
His actual kid, his blood
right?
kid.
His blood kid.
Um,
I don't want to say blood kid. That's maybe a little bit bad,
yeah, you're probably right. Uh,
but
yeah, and then after that, we talked to Jasper LaFortune, who is one of my old teachers, and who I also, like you and Mr. Underhill, have not really kept up with. But it's really, they talked a lot about their gender identity and their understanding of themselves in that way that like they seem to understand themselves and their own identity so unbelievably deeply
mm,
that
mm,
I feel like I understand myself really well, and I know my own gender identity very cleanly, but I don't think I have that same understanding that they do.
yeah, and the way they talked about their father and
Uh-huh.
like death amongst people,
Hmm.
they were super relaxed about it, and like Jasper has the Discord channel. I'm still a part of it. It's the Dead Parents Society, and like kind of
Yes.
how they talk about their their parents being like being dead.
Yeah. And
And
being able to understand that in a comedic way that embraces it is really
yeah,
cool.
and most people don't like when they lose a parent or they lose somebody who they're very close to,
Hmm.
they usually mourn over that. They don't just like think about the funny things or think about the moments they shared.
Hmm.
I really I loved Jasper coming on to the podcast. I'm somebody who's wants to learn more about gender identity and more on that because I don't really have a big understanding of it.
Hmm.
I didn't grow up around a lot of people who have either come out as trans or even gay. I don't know many people from the community.
Hmm. LGBTQ.
Thank you. I could not actually think of the acronym.
It's a bunch of letters. I understand.
Um, and then we had my brother afterwards.
Oh yeah, Austin was great. Austin Miller, Shannon's brother, not the
My
other
big
Austin, who was
my
also
big
great,
s-
but came later.
my big sticky boy.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
really cool. I'm sure we mentioned it. Both Shannon and I were in one of his games that he DM'd, and experienced a lot of his like final product from his creative process. But actually hearing about that creative process was something altogether different. And as a fellow DM, it was really cool to hear how other DMs think about that and how they understand those things.
Yeah. I, as a first time kind of DM,
Or
in
recently
Adam,
running DM.
yeah, recently running DM, it was kind of nice to understand my brother's take on everything. But it was also kind of nice because I learned a little bit about how my brother thought about like our childhood. Like, yeah, we grew up in the same house, but we did not think of things the same way.
Yeah.
Things had changed. He also moved out like when I was 8 or 9, and kind of was doing his own shindig for a long time, and now we're living together. But it was kind of nice to hear things from his perspective.
And then we talked to Blake. Blake, one of your friends.
Yes.
And
No.
I don't want to pronounce her last name wrong, so I'm just
No, that's fine. That's fine. I was gonna say, do you kind of remember what he talked about?
Not really.
That's
I
okay.
have a terrible memory. You're gonna have to take the lead.
Okay, I will remind you. So he mostly talked about family. He grew up with like not such a great childhood. He's got a lot of siblings, and his parents, from my understanding, had a hard time just like with jobs and money and addictions. So it kind of made an impact on him. So he was like moving from place to place. But he was getting to know like his buddy Cameron Robinette, or he's lived at other people's houses. And then he was also talking about Mormonism and like what changed for him as somebody who is like, he was in religion. He was all about it for so long. And then as soon as like he realized the shitty part of it, he didn't want anything to do with it. And that's not to say like he hates religion as a whole and the idea of it. It's just that it's not for him.
That's a really cool journey to hear about that. Like,
yeah, because he was talking about like how this specific guy was like trying to enlighten him to bring him higher into the church, and then was an absolute hypocrite. Not to say that all Mormons like are bad, but in this case, like there's hypocrisy that he experienced, and this guy was just kind of ruined it for him.
And him seeing that hypocrisy, like, let him understand the religion so much deeper than he had before, and showed him where he really stood about it, which is just a cool experience.
Yeah. And then recently we had not my brother Austin, the Star Wars encyclopedia. He is he was kind of a different guy. Honestly, because he grew up in New York, which for most of the people who we've interviewed did not grow up in cities for the most part. I believe Cam did, and Aaron, obviously. Yeah. But to also hear about his like relationship with his father, like I know very many people who don't have a close relationship with their fathers, and to hear how like it went from really, really bad to really, really good, and he's getting a lot closer.
Yeah, that was a really interesting experience to hear about how he really saw his dad turn his life around and was able to become a big part of it. Like, is a thing that a lot of people, I think, wish could have happened in their lives, and it proves that it can if the circumstances are right. It was also really cool to hear about his family's religions, which we brought up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But his whole family having different religious beliefs and all of them still being able to have a civil conversation about it is really a cool thing.
I most of the time, like I know I know a family, I will not mention names,
Mm.
that they do have kind of separate religions amongst the family, and they
Mm.
don't really have a great time. That one side of the family is really negative against the other, and vice versa.
Uh-huh.
One's not even really positive about the other, and it's hard to see that and to know that there's like a family out there that
Hmm.
is super chill and has very different religions. I think it's kind of, it was just fun and
Uh-huh.
relaxing to hear about.
Yeah. And then we
And
also learned some Star Wars trivia, which I
yeah,
always love.
I learned so much about blasters.
Uh-huh. That was so cool.
Who knew the Royal Guards had like kill blasters? It makes
Right?
sense.
It does. Well,
But
anyway, I think that's just about where we're gonna wrap up, right? Unless you
yeah,
got anything else to talk about?
um we've got a little bit before housekeeping.
Mm,
Yeah, we've been running almost an hour and a
hour
half.
and a half.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
You're gonna have to
Uh,
edit this one, huh?
Obviously. Um Before we get to some housekeeping stuff, we want to offer a chance for your guys' questions to be on the podcast. Um, we have an email. It is waiting, the number 4 and 4 seconds at gmail.com. It's going to be in the description, so go ahead and email us with your questions. For those of you who do not want to be on the podcast, you can also just send me your questions over Instagram or Facebook, and I will make sure to either hide your name or whatever you guys want. But we're just going to want to give you guys that opportunity to like put your questions out there, and we can ask the people we're interviewing. I think I did that well.
Yeah, I think so.
But I've got obviously the housekeeping stuff. Like always, thank you to Nadia Diaz for our podcast cover art. Her Instagram is in the description, but it is art at Arthead Creations on Instagram. And then I recently got an update from Jensen Kral, the man, the lovely legend who made our intro and outro for the podcast. He, of course, has his demo out on Spotify and a bunch of musical players. It's Knocking on Doors for the musical Tea Time. The link will be in the description for his song, but he's also been working on a 2-year writing program called the BMI Musical Theater Writing Workshop. I'm going to try and get a link from him to put that in the description. But that is the BMI Musical Theater Writing Workshop. So maybe you guys can go out and try and figure out how to write musicals. But I think that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for everybody who's been listening to these episodes. This is now number 10, and that's crazy.
Mhm.
For the life of me, 3 years ago, I couldn't imagine doing a podcast, and I've always wanted to, and here we are, 10 episodes later. So, I'm gonna let you close out the podcast, Malcolm.
Yeah. Well, look forward to next time. We've got another great guest coming on next time, and we should hopefully have 10 more coming soon.
Heck yeah! We'll see
So,
you guys later.
see you next time.